What I was lacking on my railway was a tank engine. The engine I decided on in the end was a Class 51 Great Western tank. I won't go into every nut and bolt of this thing, but just basically looking at the drawing here you can see some idea of the layout. From the drawing, the biggest change was going to be the servo motor. Try and condensing this down to fit between the frames. Starting with a solid block of brass, I started to machine out the body of the new servo. Main reason for this change was to get all the parts into a smaller body. Here you can see the almost finished servo motor housing. Now with the gears fitted in position. This is the finished unit. All I had to do next was to mill out between the frames of the Hornby chassis so that it would slide in place. Every time a part was fitted to the chassis, it was tried into the body just to check it was fitting okay. The electronics to drive this servo motor would be in the bottom of the chassis, as seen here. The next job was to shorten the front end of the chassis and move the cylinders nearer the first set of drivers. A piece of brass was fitted into the front area of this chassis and two holes provided so that I could screw the cylinders in place. The chassis was once more fitted into the body and things were looking good. The main drivers were going to be used to pick the power up from the track and transfer this into the rest of the engine driving the electronics and the heaters. You might just be able to see the pickups on this picture. Now the tender water tank. This was going to fit on the back end of the chassis and fill up most of the cab. Again it was fitted into the body. To fill the water tank, access would be through the ventilator in the cab roof. I thought by using the wheels from the Hornby tenders, machining out the centres and fitting dummy spokes, I could build another set of wheels that could pick up power from the rail. Here you see the finished wheels. And now the rear pony truck complete, ready to be fitted to the engine. The front bogies were some Hornby wheels that I had in my spares box. The engine was now taking shape and looking more like a Great Western tank. Some testing was undertaken at this stage and faults showed up. One being the electronics didn't seem to like being underneath the heat of the tender tank. So a redesign on this and a printed board in a horseshoe shape was made and fitted in the rear area of the chassis, as you can see here. Further testing was now needed to make sure all these new parts worked okay. With the engine now in steam and running backwards and forwards, pulling wagons and also coach, it seemed to be performing quite well. A few more runs like this just to loosen up the moving parts, and I think we can move on to the next part. Well, still a lot more to do before we buy the paint, but things are looking promising.